7 things you should not do with her. It kills attraction. Introduction. The modern world has filled your head with toxic advice that forces you into behavioral traps with women, completely killing their attraction. As a woman who understands the hidden mechanics of desire, I am here to expose the 7 critical mistakes you must stop making directly with her if you want to maintain your power and self-respect. True attraction is murdered by emotional desperation, validation seeking, and a complete failure of stoic discipline during your interactions. Today, we are pulling back the curtain on the exact behaviors you commit with her that cause her to lose all romantic interest, transforming you from a strong leader into an option she easily dismisses. Subscribe to this channel right now and open your mind to this raw, unyielding truth. Stop destroying your own value with her, and let us begin. 1. Over-validating her. The first fatal mistake you must never commit with her is bombarding her with constant, unearned validation and superficial flattery. Modern men have been conditioned to believe that the way to secure a woman's heart is to shower her with compliments, praise her appearance every hour of the day, and worship the very ground she walks on. When you engage in this behavior with her, her psychological response is the exact opposite of what you expect. Instead of feeling drawn to you, she instantly registers that you are operating from a place of deep internal scarcity, trying to buy her affection because you do not believe your mere presence is enough. She looks at your endless praise and thinks to herself that you have placed her on a massive pedestal, which automatically forces you to look up at her from a position of weakness. This behavior completely violates the stoic discipline of desire, which warns against becoming an emotional slave to external impressions and superficial beauty. The great philosopher Epictetus explicitly taught that if you want to grow in wisdom and personal power, you must be content to appear clueless or foolish regarding external things, never letting your mind be carried away by initial appearances. When you over-validate her, you are allowing her external appearance to completely overpower your rational mind, surrendering your masculine sovereignty for the cheap hope of her approval. Consider the historical example of the ancient Stoics who refused to flatter corrupt Roman emperors or wealthy patrons just to secure safety or social advancement. They knew that a man who compromises his speech for validation has already enslaved his soul. Ask yourself this mind-blowing question. Why are you handing her the absolute monopoly on your emotional stability by treating her ordinary presence like a divine privilege that you must constantly praise? A high-value woman cannot experience attraction for a man who acts like her #1 fan rather than her equal partner. When you drop the constant flattery and interact with her with calm, objective composure, you show her that your validation must be actively earned through character and mutual respect, which immediately causes her attraction to skyrocket. 2. Suffocating her space. The second critical mistake that completely murders attraction is suffocating her space through constant, anxious communication and a desperate need for her perpetual presence. When you overwhelm her with endless text messages, demand her immediate attention, and panic the moment she steps away into her own world, you are broadcasting a profound lack of masculine self-sufficiency. A woman looks at this behavior and instantly thinks that you have no mission, no purpose, and no internal life of your own to sustain you. She begins to feel trapped by your insecurity, viewing your constant reach-outs not as affection, but as a heavy emotional weight that she is forced to carry. This suffocating behavior directly contradicts the essential Stoic concept of autarky, or the cultivation of absolute self-reliance. The ancient master Seneca wrote extensively about the necessity of a man being entirely self-contained, stating that a wise man is self-sufficient not in the sense that he desires to be without friends, but that he is completely capable of enduring solitude without falling into despair. When you smother her with your anxious attachment, you are telling her that you cannot survive a single afternoon without using her attention as an emotional crutch. Consider how ancient Stoic warriors trained themselves to remain entirely functional and content during long periods of isolation on distant frontiers, maintaining their internal discipline without needing constant reassurance from home. Ask yourself this mind-blowing question. If your own company is so incredibly hollow that you cannot stand to be alone with your thoughts for a few hours, why should a woman find your presence attractive or worth her time? A woman's desire requires the oxygen of absence to grow, and when you refuse to give her space, you smother the flame of attraction completely. By stepping back, focusing entirely on your own path, and allowing a natural silence to exist between you, you demonstrate the rugged independence that commands true feminine respect. 3. Arguing emotionally. The third destructive mistake you must never make with her is engaging in emotional, high-pitched arguments that shatter your masculine composure. When a woman tests your boundaries, expresses dissatisfaction, or creates emotional turbulence, the weakest thing you can do is match her chaos with your own anger, defensiveness, or loud outbursts. The moment you lose your temper and begin trading emotional insults with her, she instantly realizes that she has the power to completely derail your mental stability with a few words. She looks at your lack of restraint and thinks to herself that you are emotionally fragile, moving you from a position of a strong leader to that of an unpredictable, reactive child. This complete collapse of emotional control completely violates the foundational Stoic principle of maintaining your absolute internal fortress, a concept that the Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius practiced with fierce dedication throughout his reign. Marcus Aurelius constantly reminded himself that no external event has the power to touch the soul, and that our anger hurts us far more than the things that actually make us angry. When you allow her words to provoke you into an emotional frenzy, you are surrendering your mental sovereignty and showing her that your mind is a fragile glass structure that can be easily shattered by her mood swings. Consider how ancient Roman senators or Stoic philosophers faced public humiliation, betrayal, and execution with absolute, eerie calmness. They knew that a man who controls his tongue in the face of provocation is completely invincible. Ask yourself this mind-blowing question. How can you ever expect a woman to trust you to navigate the brutal crises of the real world if you completely fall apart and lose your mind over a simple disagreement in the living room? A woman can never feel safe or attracted to a man whose emotions she can easily weaponize against him. When you respond to her emotional storms with dead silence, objective logic, and unyielding calm, you display the rugged psychological strength that naturally forces her to submit to your authority. 4. Seeking her permission. The fourth fatal mistake that completely kills attraction is constantly seeking her permission, approval, and reassurance before making any decision in your relationship or life. Modern culture has mistakenly taught men that being a good partner means surrendering their leadership, constantly asking her what you should do, and refusing to take a definitive stance without her explicit blessing. When you act this way with her, her psychological response is one of profound disappointment and loss of respect. She looks at your hesitation and thinks to herself that you are utterly terrified of making a mistake, passing the heavy burden of leadership onto her shoulders because you lack the courage to stand by your own judgment. This submissive behavior is a direct violation of the Stoic concept of hegemonikon, which is the ruling center of the mind that must remain sovereign, rational, and fully accountable for its own choices. The great Stoic philosopher Epictetus argued that a man must never look outside of himself for direction, but must instead rely on his own internal moral compass and reason to guide his path through the world. When you constantly ask her for permission or validation on every minor detail, you are effectively telling her that your ruling center is entirely hollow and that you require her to act as your parent rather than your romantic partner. Consider how the ancient Stoics viewed leaders who were paralyzed by indecision or who constantly pandered to the opinions of others. They viewed them as weak, unprincipled men, unfit to command even their own households. Ask yourself this mind-blowing question. Why are you handing over the steering wheel of your life to a woman, and then wondering why she no longer views you as a strong, capable man who can protect her future? A woman desires a man who knows exactly who he is, where he is going, and who possesses the masculine confidence to make a firm decision and own the consequences. When you stop asking for permission and start leading with clear, rational intent, you restore the natural order and reignite her desire. 5. Complaining or venting weakness. The fifth critical mistake you must avoid with her is using her as an emotional dumping ground for your complaints, insecurities, and daily grievances. Many men have fallen into the therapeutic trap of believing that absolute vulnerability means crying on a woman's shoulder, whining about how unfair the world is, or constantly venting about their professional or personal struggles. When you exhibit this behavioral pattern with her, her subconscious mind immediately shifts into survival mode. She looks at your emotional venting and thinks to herself that if you are completely overwhelmed by the baseline pressures of your daily life, you possess absolutely no resilience to protect her when a genuine tragedy strikes. This weak behavior completely flies in the face of the stoic virtue of courage and the practice of amor fati, the radical acceptance and cheerful endurance of whatever fate throws your way. The ancient philosopher Seneca taught that difficulties strengthen the mind, as labor does the body, and that a man who whines about his burdens is simply revealing his own internal cowardice. When you complain to her, you are projecting an image of a victim who is helpless against his circumstances, rather than a warrior who conquers them. Consider how the legendary Stoic leader Cato the Younger faced political exile, military defeat, and ultimately death without a single word of self-pity or complaint. His silence was his greatest armor. Ask yourself this mind-blowing question. How can you expect a woman to look up to you with intense attraction when you are constantly acting like a helpless victim, looking for a mother to comfort your emotional wounds? A woman wants a rock, a sanctuary of stability, who remains entirely unbothered by the storms of life. When you keep your complaints to yourself, process your challenges in silence or with trusted brothers, and present yourself to her as a man of action, you project an aura of unshakable power that makes her desire to rest in your strength irresistible. 6. Changing your values to please her. The sixth devastating mistake that will completely destroy her attraction to you is compromising or entirely changing your core values, boundaries, and lifestyle choices just to keep her happy. When a woman realizes that she can challenge your deeply held beliefs, your schedule, or your personal standards, and watch you instantly fold like a house of cards to avoid her displeasure, she experiences a massive drop in respect for you. She might smile on the surface because she got her way, but internally, she thinks to herself that you are a man without a spine, a superficial actor who stands for absolutely nothing when his romantic access is threatened. This people-pleasing behavior completely betrays the essential Stoic principle of integrity and the absolute commitment to moral virtue, which the ancient masters viewed as the only true good in human existence. The great Stoic philosopher Epictetus taught that your moral character is the one thing that belongs entirely to you, and that to trade your integrity for the cheap approval or pleasure of another person is the ultimate form of self-enslavement. When you shift your boundaries to accommodate her whims, you are telling her that her temporary validation is far more valuable to you than your own honor and code of conduct. Consider the powerful historical example of the Stoic philosopher-statesman Thrasea, who deliberately chose to be executed by the tyrannical Roman Emperor Nero rather than compromise his moral principles or praise a tyrant's actions. He understood that physical death is nothing compared to the death of one's character. Ask yourself this mind-blowing question. Why are you so utterly terrified of temporary conflict or her disapproval that you are willing to completely assassinate your own self-respect and become a shadow of a man? A woman can never truly love or desire a man she can bend to her will. When you stand firm on your boundaries and let her know that you will walk away before you compromise your code, you command her absolute awe. 7. Making her your purpose. The seventh and most catastrophic mistake you can ever commit with her is making her and the relationship itself the central purpose of your entire existence. When you stop chasing your career, abandon your fitness goals, neglect your personal passions, and isolate yourself from your brothers just to spend every waking moment focused on her, you commit romantic suicide. A woman looks at a man who has made her the center of his universe and instantly experiences a profound sense of claustrophobia and loss of desire. She thinks to herself that your life must be incredibly empty and directionless if you are willing to abandon your masculine duties just to orbit around her schedule. This pathetic dependency is the absolute opposite of the Stoic doctrine of fulfilling your rational nature and pursuing your higher telos, or ultimate purpose, with unyielding dedication. The Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius woke up every single morning reminding himself that his primary duty was to perform the work of a man, to contribute to the common good, and to master his own mind, entirely independent of whether his efforts were appreciated by those around him. When you make a woman your purpose, you are committing a form of psychological idolatry, transforming an ordinary, flawed human being into a false god that you worship at the expense of your own potential. Consider how ancient Stoic architects and engineers built monuments and structures designed to last for centuries. They poured their souls into their craftsmanship, not into the fleeting approval of onlookers. Ask yourself this mind-blowing question. How can you ever expect a woman to remain attracted to you when you have completely extinguished the very drive, ambition, and focus that made you an interesting man in the first place? A high-value woman wants to be a passenger on a powerful locomotive that is headed toward a definitive, grand destination. She never wants to be the destination itself. When you put your mission first and make it crystal clear that your purpose will never bow to her convenience, you create a powerful masculine gravity that pulls her toward you with intense, enduring attraction. We have completely pulled back the curtain on the hidden psychology of desire, and you now know the 7 catastrophic mistakes you must never commit with her if you want to keep her attraction burning. True masculine power is never maintained by bowing to a woman's whims, emotional venting, or making her the false god of your existence. It is forged by standing tall as an unshakable rock of stoic discipline, logic, and independent purpose. My final hard-hitting piece of advice for you is this. Stop treating your interactions with her like a desperate negotiation for validation, and start viewing yourself as a sovereign leader who answers only to his own honor and mission. Marcus Aurelius reminded us that a man should stand upright, not be kept upright by others, and in your relationship, you must possess the rugged self-sufficiency to walk your path without needing her constant approval. If you ever feel your composure slipping or find yourself slipping back into these attraction-killing habits, make it a non-negotiable rule to revisit this channel immediately to realign your mindset with raw truth. Subscribe to this channel right now to keep your consciousness anchored in this unyielding perspective on masculinity and personal power. Go out into the world today, eliminate these destructive behaviors with her entirely, guard your self-respect with absolute ferocity, and lead your life with the unshakable dignity of a true Stoic.